Look, I'm going to play a small bit from the Suella Braverman, Fiona Lally exchange, and I think you'll agree with me that Fiona Lally comes across extremely well, although she is ill-prepared and she's picked up a lot of the rather silly propaganda and slogans that she's simply repeating as facts, and that doesn't work. But just listen to the way Suella Braverman fails again and again. And this is somebody who wants to be the leader of the Conservative Party, who wants to be Prime Minister, frankly.
You're saying your encampment has nothing to do with the events of October the 7th or Israel's response to October the 7th. Is that what you're saying? It's totally detached to October the 7th and Israel's response?
The only thing that is detached, I would say, is actually your views and your approach to this whole situation and the whole of the Tory government. The people, the student protesters, are very attached to what is happening in Palestine, and they are doing what they can in order to stop universities who provide, I think, £450 million to the Israeli state, to the Israeli military, rather than investing in their own education and what they should be putting money into. You are the one, and your government is completely out of touch with what actually the majority of people in Britain think about what's happening. The majority of people in Britain do not support what Israel is doing and actually want us to stop sending weapons. And you were saying today that we should send more, which is completely opposed to what people in Britain actually want. So I think you're detached.
Right. So on arms. So can I ask you, what's your view of Hamas?
I don't want to talk about Hamas. I want to talk about why. And the reason that you want to talk about Hamas is because you want to keep justifying spending more money for Israel, right? Sunak earlier, a month or two ago, was talking about increasing defence spending to 2.5%. They want to spend loads of money on that, but no money on the NHS, no money on education. You want to cut pensions, you want to cut council budgets. That's what the government that you support is doing, which is causing serious suffering in this country as well.
So this is not to do with Hamas, it's not to do with Israel. This is about the Conservative government. Is this an anti-Conservative?
You're bringing up Hamas. Of course we're anti-Conservative because the Conservative government is facilitating and supporting a genocide. And not just that, it's also overseeing a horrific set of policies, austerity policies, that are damaging everyone's lives in Britain today.
OK. So you have no view on Hamas, and you have no message for Hamas, and you have no
I'm not here to
connection
talk about Hamas.
You're not here, right? So you don't have a view.
Connection to Hamas.
OK. And so, what's your message? Do you believe Israel has a right to exist?
What is your message to the majority of people in Britain who don't support you, who hate the Tories, who hate you specifically? Right? You went to Cambridge.
No
answer? You were saying that
it's a fair question.
I don't want to pile in and look, absolutely, crack on as far as I'm concerned. But she did ask you a direct question. I think our viewers would like to know: Do you think Israel has a right to exist?
I think that's a silly question, to be honest. And I think you're asking the wrong questions. You're asking those questions to distract from the central point that I was making, which is that the reason you don't like these student protesters and you don't like these encampments, one, is because they've already brought you down, but two, it's because of what it represents, which is a growing movement and a growing feeling in this country, which is against the Tories and against any main political parties.
You have made that point. I am very interested. Although when I did go there were lots of posters about Israel, there were posters about Palestine, and there were placards about Gaza. So we can't completely ignore the issue about what's happening in Israel and Gaza.
Let's talk about it seriously. Let's talk about what the Israeli state has done for the last 76 years.
So would you say that Israel has a right to defend itself?
Israel does not have the right to do what it is doing right now, which is a genocide, which is the criminal enslavement and trapping people in certain places and then saying, you've got to move somewhere else. The ongoing invasion of Rafah that has been spoken about today, the displacement of millions of people. Of course they don't have the right to do that, and no one thinks they do.
Right.
And you posing those questions is exactly what makes students in Cambridge think, I don't want to talk to you, I don't want to talk to any war criminal, I want to grow this encampment, I want to grow a movement.
Well, it's quite strong stuff. I mean, as far
criminal.
Yeah, I mean, so
yeah, you are a war criminal.
How would you respond? How would you respond to that? I mean,
Well, you made some interesting points there about genocide. So let's focus on that. So the legal definition of genocide is the targeted destruction of a group of people defined by their race, their nationality, their ethnicity, or their religion, in what way would you say that Israel is targeting a group by those standards?
Is that serious? In what way is Israel targeting a group? So the killing and the injuring of over 100,000 people already in Palestine to you doesn't feel like a targeted approach towards specific
Hamas,
people.
And they are aiming
You don't believe that.
degrade.
You don't believe that at all.
If I can finish my point to you, because I've listened to you quite a lot, what do you say about the very legitimate aim, I would put to you, that Israel is targeting a terrorist organisation called Hamas and is aiming to degrade, destabilise and even kill Hamas terrorists?
No.
I disagree with that.
I disagree with that completely. And calling it legitimate, you're talking about legal. Even if you want to talk about the legal world, law, whatever, all of those institutions, the International Court of Justice, have also said that legally what is happening and what Israel is doing is a genocide and is moving towards a genocide.
Let's stick to facts.
I think okay, let's stick to facts.
That is actually
40,000 people dead.
Fine.
More than that.
The problem here is that this student is ill-prepared, and it seems extraordinary that Suella Braverman is so badly equipped and so incapable of conducting a conversation with somebody who is so so thoughtless. The slogans that she's using, this is the student Fiona Lally, and the energy she puts in are great. But this is student politics, and she's up against the former Home Secretary, who ought to be able to deal with this with sort of one brush of her hand, and she can't. When it comes to the accusation of genocide, there are many accusations that have been made of genocide against Israel, but in fact, the furthest that this has gone in court was a recommendation that Israel should work hard to stop genocide. And although people have made accusations, these haven't been supported. And as for accusing Suella Braverman herself of being a war criminal, this is faintly absurd. We may not like Suella Braverman, but it doesn't mean that she's a war criminal. We may not think that Suella Braverman has reasonable arguments, but that doesn't mean that she should be dismissed. We want to hear what she's got to say. The problem is, Suella Braverman has nothing to say. All she can do, it seems, is trot out slogans, which are not much better than the sort of slogans trotted out by this particular student. You know, if we want to hear slogans, then maybe we need to go to the Wednesday Prime Minister questions. And if this is the example of what is being offered to the public as good politics, Prime Minister questions, we shouldn't be surprised that Fiona Lally is not capable of rising beyond this point. What we should be surprised at is that Suella Braverman cannot do any better. This is the person who stood at the dispatch box, remember, and screamed, "Invader." This is a person who I can think of many students in my time who could easily have wiped the floor with Suella Braverman. Fiona Lally is not up to that. She's very good, but she's not up to that. Suella Braverman should have been confidently rebutting these points, and she can't. She can't.